Hey, folks. Uh, I am back, and it is the first time in a very long time. And I got to tell y'all, I had the weirdest year last year. It was crazy. I woke up one day and I was chair of Houston Association of Realtors, and that was really weird. And it lasted all year, and I had some really incredible experiences that I'm sure I'll be talking about quite a bit in this. But there have been so many other things that have happened in the last year and a half, maybe even. I don't really remember when the last time was I did one of these, but I'm back and I'm going to have some more coffee right here. Um, yeah, it's time. It's past time, right? Um, so what is this new incarnation of Sundays with Shae? First of all, it's only once a month. I'm not going to burn myself out. I'm not going to do it every single week. There's going to be a little bit more of a plan. Hey, good morning, Jennifer. There's going to be a little bit more of a plan, and a little bit more fun too, and a little bit more purpose. I've learned a lot over the last few years. This journey that I've been on has been pretty crazy. And there's so much that I've learned. I want to share so much with you, but all in due time, right? Today is going to be a really fun day, though. And it's not just this. It's not just that we're here together and we're hanging out. But I've got a friend that stopped by. And I gotta share a little bit about this friend. So once upon a time we were at the same brokerage. We've got a good history together. She's an incredible artistic soul. She's a real estate agent, but she's more than that. She's an actor. She's a singer. She's a dancer. She does all these different things. But more than that, she is just a really incredibly good friend who is really intuitive about some things. And in the past, especially over the course of this past year, we've had some really powerful conversations. And I invited her to stop by this morning and kind of have one of those conversations. Again, this is completely unscripted. This is completely off the cuff, but Jill Leberknight, won't you come on in? And I am so glad you're here.
Good morning. Good morning.
That's
Gotta start
a
off
tall
with a
order. You're
song.
already singing.
Well, I do have my coffee here, and I still have some pillow marks from my strange sleeping last night. Good
All good.
morning.
All good. I have my own puffy face pillow marks. I kept thinking that if I just got up a little earlier today, it wouldn't be like that, but it is.
No, that's another topic for another day.
Exactly. Well, how in the world are you?
I am great and really excited for the new year because I just completed my year in review narration exercise, and I have all this new clarity about the strangely awful, hard, difficult, I'm a failure year of 25 that I thought that I had. And now I've emerged from this cocoon of deep analysis, like ready to share it with my friend.
Awesome. So, what happened this year? I mean, I know that, a lot of the things that happened, but bringing it into the stuff you're talking. Oh my goodness, Dahlia. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Oh, I feel surrounded by Shae's tribe.
Aww.
It's a good way to start a Sunday.
It's a good tribe. It's a good
Yeah.
tribe.
Well, 2025 was a year of a lot of extraordinary opportunities. I had opportunities to step into some new leadership roles, inspiring women, Women's Impact Network, and had the wonderful opportunity to chair it and, pour my heart into empowering and encouraging and lifting up women. And and I had this great opportunity to be mentored by Betsy Myers, who, served under 2 presidencies, stepped into the White House under the Clinton administration. Her sister, Dee Dee Myers, was the first female press secretary in the Clinton administration. I mean, just this woman that has, been on the ground floor of fighting for women for 3 decades. She is a legend, an icon, and I had the opportunity to learn from her, learn more about women's work.
Yeah.
So, I just had new opportunities,
Yeah.
but while all these new opportunities were happening, I am in real estate, and the real estate market, the housing market, at least in Austin, Texas, has not been great. So, I had the worst year of my career last
Mm,
year that raised up a lot of feelings of failure,
mm,
and I'm terrible at this. I feel like the past several years have, in real estate, we've been kind of having to shift and redefine ourselves, from the pandemic through the lawsuits and all that.
it's a
Um,
constantly evolving
and it's
navigation.
yeah, and it's exhausting. And I don't know. This year's pivot into the new way of serving my clients. I call myself a holistic agent.
Mm,
I run the Austin Holistic Real Estate Group. So, like, we approach the work that we do, the service that we do for our clients holistically,
yeah.
looking at the whole picture and helping guide people through a project, a process that is bigger than just the sale of a home.
Yeah.
And I really was beaten up
Mm,
by the challenges of moving property and the emotions that people have. I also serve a lot of clients that are a part of the queer migration.
mm,
We're going to say it like it is. There is a
yeah.
queer migration happening, shifting out of Texas, and like, just holding a lot of the grief and anxiousness and stress and emotions of that. It just was brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it was 2 things, and it can be 2 things, and I'm allowing myself for it to not just be one thing. It wasn't just an awful year, it was a complex year that held 2 giant emotions of new and wonderful and freaking hard as shit.
Yeah. And so much of the time when things go wrong, when life happens, when we end up fighting those feelings of failure, or I don't know what happened, I don't know where things went wrong. Um, they're just so disarming. It's hard to find your footing. Yeah, I get that. Um, it's been a tough year for a lot of folks, and there were times where it was a tough year for me. Not at all in the same kind of camp, but I think for me, those tethers that I worked really hard to kind of build over the last few years to really anchor myself. This was a year of testing those tethers.
Mm.
Do they work or do they not? Do they help me stay sane? Do they help me stay focused? Do they help me keep my own stress level down? Um, and I think what I learned is that it's always evolving.
Yeah, I really resonate with what you just described. I mean, I think one of the things that we're drawn to each other about is our real full-bodied awareness
Mm,
of how we navigate through this world. Um, and I love to hear, and I'm not, of course, surprised to hear that you were deeply aware of stepping into this new experience that you did last year with uh, wondering how you are going to respond to the stress, and this word tethered. Um, did it help you? Um, can you think of a time that it didn't help you? it didn't work as you envisioned and how you responded to that?
That's a good question. I think so. Let me try to describe it this way. For me, I think one of the things that I've worked on is those tethers. Um, for me, it's a matter of which one is the right one at the right time.
Mm,
It's the same support structure may not work the same every single time, but if I've got an array of them, um, for instance, I'll give you an example. One of the things that something I've been working on for 10, 12, maybe 15 years or longer, possibly, um, is something that I just call a joy list. Uh,
mm,
And it's a constant list that I keep up. I'm always taking things off of it and putting other things on because sometimes things just stop working. But
mhm.
but it's just a practical list of things that bring me joy. It can be anything from a certain record, a certain piece of music, a great cigar, my kids' laughter, um, a TV show, you know, whatever it is. And I've got a physical list of all these things on there. And it, for me, it's my tool bag of
Yeah.
what happens when I'm stressed, when I'm down, when I'm overwhelmed. What off of that list can I grab that just totally changes the weather? And I'll give you an example. For me, music is a big factor.
Mm,
Um, and music can absolutely change my mood. One great example of this is there's an Icelandic band that I love, Sigur Ró. Um, I have no idea what they're saying. Don't ask me. Uh, Most of the time, Jónsi is singing in Icelandic. Some of the time, he's actually singing in complete gibberish. The words are just nonsense. But that's not what matters. What matters is the music. There's just such grand beauty and majesty to their music, and I can put one of their albums on, and it can absolutely change the weather in my room. If I'm having a rough day or whatever, I can grab their parentheses album, put it on, and in 5 minutes, everything's different. And I know everybody doesn't function like that,
yeah.
but I know a lot of people do. And whether it's music or something else, I've tried to build all of these different things around me so that if something happens in the moment, I can just grab something, and a lot of times they're very subtle things. I can have something like that going. For instance, I can have a piece of music going in the background, and the people I'm talking to at work, my coworkers, the agents I'm speaking with, my family, whoever else is in the mix, they may not even know that's going on in the background.
Mm,
But it's a subtle way that I can do that. Another one is taking a walk, or sometimes just simply putting my bare feet in the grass. It
mhm.
can take 60 seconds to go stick my feet in the grass, and something changes. But to keep all of those structures around so that in the heat of the moment, I can try one, and if that doesn't do it, I can try a different one, and if that does, I can just keep going down the list, and occasionally I'll eventually find something.
Yeah.
But it took me a certain discipline to start doing that. But at some point, that discipline just became another joy, like, hey, these are
Mm.
just all the things that make me happy. Um,
I really, really love that, because I've recently been mindful that maybe I've been, um, stuck in a story about happiness. I hate to put quotations around it, but really, I feel like I've had this story of happiness that uh, was one colored, like
mm,
it was, you know, blue pink. Had to be that at all. That had to be at this level and this tone and resonance at all time, or it wasn't happiness. Um,
Mm,
and and I didn't always know how to be in the in between that wasn't sad or melancholy or frustrated, but was peaceful, unless I was at that tone of happiness.
mm.
And there's been some the past several years, there's that Harvard professor that teaches that happiness class. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and there's been some additional research coming out. He wrote the book with Oprah, kind of talking a little bit more about purpose and joy. And just I am no way am I an expert on what he's been recently talking about, but there was this maybe the definition of happiness that we've been living under doesn't really serve us,
Mhm.
and that maybe there's another story there of something that is a little bit more uh, that's flexible. Maybe that's the word.
Yeah.
Um, and you describing those things that you can bring into your world when things get out of focus just makes me wonder if I could pace my day differently so that I
Mm.
wasn't kind of approaching each day with this goal of, I want to be joyful. I will be joyful and love all the things that I'm doing. And that how how do you pace your life so that it's not these constant highs and lows? And I know
Mm.
that there's going to be highs and lows. I'm not implying that I want to eliminate all the highs and lows. I just am I am mindful that I am entering into 2026 with this understanding that I am ready to throw out old stories that no longer work for me. And
Mm.
as I always have here on my shelf, write my story, write the story that works for me. That's why I really resonate with your phrase,
Mm.
finding frequency, because I feel like that's what I'm craving right now is what is my pace and rhythm? And I guess it doesn't have to be the same all the time, does it?
Yeah, no, you're right, it doesn't. You know, I know this might be a shock, but I'm severely ADHD. Um, and,
Who
for
isn't these days?
right? And for me, most of my life, that's translated in what you're talking about, translated into these really drastic highs and lows. I've oftentimes, um, you know, found myself gravitating to people like Henry Rollins, and Henry Rollins talks about himself being he's not intense, he is intensity. He's either going to
Mm.
really love something or really hate something, and he's got these extremes, and there's a part of that that speaks to my nature, but that beats me up. Those constant swings, and what I've really worked to develop in my own self over the last it's probably been since the pandemic, is that sort of quiet, simplistic contentment, where I can be just as happy in a very quiet, simple moment that may not have anything uproariously exciting. Like yesterday, I was telling you earlier, this has been a really interesting vacation. I've been on vacation since December 27th. Second
Whoa.
vacation I've taken in a long time. And it was much needed. Um, but timing could have been better because everybody at my house ended up sick,
Mm.
um, except me. Somehow I've been completely untouched the entire time. But my daughter got sick, her fiance got sick, my oldest son got sick, my youngest somehow skated by, my wife got sick, and all these people were sick around me. all that to say, my plans changed drastically for the week when all that happened, and I've kind of been hibernating all week long, and that was not my plan at all. But yesterday, we decided to get out of the house for just a little bit. Jess was feeling better, and it was time to kind of just, get out. And so we sat in the backyard.
Mm.
We sat in the backyard and enjoyed the sun, put a blanket out there, played some music. I read, and it was just a really simple couple of hours of just stopping everything and existing
Mm.
and being out in the sun and sitting in the grass and watching the dog. And there was something really beautiful and peaceful about that moment. Um, and I
Mm.
found myself really joyous, but not in the bouncing off the walls happiness kind of moment. And
Yeah.
there was a really simple happiness in it.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like sometimes I need more of those because those two extremes can be very draining, even if that extreme is a really high extreme. Um, it can be kind of draining when you come down finally.
Absolutely. And the role that our internal stories can play
Mm,
and how we feel about those moments can really affect us. If you didn't have an ability to, in the moment, recognize, okay, this isn't what I envisioned or expected
mm,
for my vacation activities with my wife or my family or myself, um, I recognize that this is a wonderful, beautiful moment that I can cherish and treasure right now.
mm,
Um, we're humans. We crave interpreting the world around us. We are constantly putting it into story, cubbies,
yeah.
and we do not sit well in indecision or uh, not having some sort of meaning to moments.
Mm,
Uh, and so it reminds me, a friend of mine taught me a business planning type of personal development exercise years ago that I just completed and, talked about at the beginning. Um, it's a process where you analyze your year, you go month by month, and you list out all the activities that you did
mm,
in one column. Go through your calendar and, like, just list out what did you do each month, each week, each day. And then the second column for each of those activities, what did they mean to you? What did that
mm.
activity mean
Like an
to
experience audit.
And then once you do that, you sit and meditate with what you discover,
Mm,
and then you write your story for the previous year. And man,
hmm,
every time I go through this exercise, I realize that my actions were completely different than the bad, horrible stories that I was creating about myself.
mm,
Um, that actually my actions were showing myself that, oh, well, I showed up. I chose this. I'm resilient. I felt good about this. I
yeah.
felt accomplished. I was proud, or I was pleased with my effort, or at least I stuck with it, or at least the actions were showing me what I was choosing to focus on. Um, and then this year I added some other layers because I'm going to be real honest. I have been leaning into Chat GPT. I have been having the greatest collaborative creative sessions, and I added all these new layers to it, because I feel like my chat has gotten to know me really well. I name her Grace Farrell. I will, see if any of your, tribe, understands the reference of Grace Farrell. But I created a personal myth
Mm,
for my year or my year moving forward and created symbols and music and sounds to make it visceral.
Yeah.
We're just leaving the snake year and we're heading into the fire horse. And what started to emerge was this understanding that last year was a shedding year. It was a threshold
Mm.
year. It was a year where I was pushed to live and lead and be in situations that really, really challenged me. And I
Yeah.
rose to the occasion. I didn't always feel like I was rising to the occasion, but I did. And so next year, I feel like I am that fire horse that is lightening the load so that I can gallop at Jill pace.
Mm.
Um, but I also feel like I am a river bend, that I am the frequency that I'm discovering is more like a river that to keep moving shifts and turns, but keeps on moving.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had this image of a wolf that is choosing, that knows how to be with the pack, a
Mm.
chosen pack when it needs to, and knows how to be independent and go forth when it needs to. So I have this image of the river bend, the wolf, and the unburdened horse. And those are my stories for the year that are helping me, ground myself in specificity.
Yeah. I'll make a statement. It might seem off topic, but I think it really connects with this. I was having a conversation with my youngest the other day. He's a music student at UNT.
Mm,
In his second year, he's in the electronics program, electronic production, electronic music, something like that. And of course, he's kind of found his group. Um, and several weeks ago, I've got horrible uh, understanding of time sometimes. I'll say something is a couple of weeks and it was like 2 years ago. So a couple of weeks ago, we went to one of his end of the year concert, his recital. And we were just it was incredible. The show was great. It was like a concert, not when you typically think of music programs, collegiate music program concerts, you think of choral programs. This is just like a concert, I'd buy a ticket to and go to it, the Post or something. It was really fun. And we were talking about it afterwards, and he was talking about how nervous he was and how much he was kind of in his head in the moment. Um, we had this really interesting conversation afterwards about imposter syndrome.
mm,
And I told him, I said, I don't know anybody that doesn't fight imposter syndrome. I think it's a universal thing that we all in the moment can wrestle with and struggle with. You were talking about retrospectively looking back on the year and how you felt in the moment versus how you felt looking back. And it is so easy to get in our heads and to think in the moment of all the things that we are missing.
mm,
I think about this year back in October for the first time since the pandemic. I actually got on the stage for the first time since 2020. Um, got on the stage with my guitar, played some songs, had a great time. I screwed up royally in one of the songs in a way that really embarrassed me.
mm,
Um, because I knew the song intimately. I wrote the song. I knew exactly every little bend and moment that I should have nailed. And nobody else knew that song like that. And I don't think anybody else noticed that I screwed up except me. But that screw up derailed me for just a minute. Right. And to everybody else, they thought it was great. And I think so much of the time, whether it's music or real estate or whatever, we're stuck in our heads. And in that moment, it's so easy to focus on things that maybe other people just aren't even noticing sometimes.
yeah.
Um,
And I wonder, Shay, if Since the world and life is so much more available on screen, if that has exasperated the problem, um, that we've lost an ability to just go with the flow
Mhm.
and allow moments to be. I don't know.
So
Obviously,
I'm gonna
I well, I think you and I have lived pre-cell phones, pre-social media, but we still had noise when we were teenagers. We still
absolutely.
had chatter.
You know, so if I go see a concert, sorry, always gonna go back to music sometimes. If I go see a concert, I can leave that concert in the moment, and I've done this and thought, "Oh my gosh, that was the best concert I've ever been to in my life. The band was just spot on." And that may be absolutely correct, that the experience was the best experience possible. I'm human. Everybody on stage was human. My ears are hearing like human ears do. Their hands were playing, their voices were singing like human hands and human people do, which is imperfect. But if I were to take that same exact moment and record it without overdubs, without polishing, without any kind of editing, and then play it back, it probably wouldn't sound nearly as good as that experience was.
Mm,
Because life is to be lived in the moment. And when we're looking at things online, whether it's the way people present themselves on Facebook or social media, or it's a recording of something or whatever, that viewpoint isn't really a human viewpoint. It's like an archived viewpoint, and that archival process is going to expose so much more than real life does in the minute. And we've got to let that stuff go,
mhm.
because it's that's not life. Life is in the moment. I mean,
Yeah,
so that's kind
and
of where
it
my thinking is.
totally, and you're likely aware of how being surrounded by community and in a fellowship of
Mm.
listening to music adds this whole other layer of joy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you bring up a good point, because it does take a village in
Yeah.
so many different respects. Um, I am not the person I am today in a vacuum. I'm the person I am today because of the people I'm around, because of my experiences, because of our collective experiences. Whether it's shared values or shared purpose, or or sometimes even shared development. I think about in 2018 when I went through the TRLP program.
Mhm.
Um, that leadership program was so important to my development as a person, but it wasn't just the program, it was the context of the people
Yeah.
I was in that program with. And in the same way, our friendship, anytime you and I get together and have these conversations, I leave a different person. Um, that's why we've got to be really vigilant about where we put our time and who we spend our time around, and the way that we lean into those communities and groups. um it's very important.
Very important. Um, and carving out time to be reflected and ask yourself, is the story that I'm telling myself the truth?
Mm,
Because sometimes it's not. Um,
yeah.
like I am a mature woman that's going through the very fun M word, menopause, and I've gained a lot of weight this past year, and I have been beating myself up and beating myself up, And when I went through this exercise and realized there was not one activity that was related to my weight at all, I was still out there doing the things, being creative, leading, serving, um, being joyful, choosing life. There was nothing in my year that highlighted, you're
Mm,
not this perfect image of thin or whatever. Um, and that was sort of surprising and important to discover that.
yeah.
So that's not, so I was teaching myself that the untruths that a good friend, because oftentimes that's what you and I are able to give each other
Yeah.
is, that co-regulation, that support of that's actually not true. You're actually really good at this, or to highlight something that you didn't even think about.
Yeah.
Um, that's what friends can do. And I'm getting better at providing myself the support
Mm,
that I know I can give myself.
yeah. I mean, we're taught in so many different ways how to be a good friend to other people, but we're never really taught how to be a good friend to ourselves and to draw that same stuff out of ourselves that we tend to draw out of other people so easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I've never been someone that is good at journaling. I find that
Yeah.
practice hard. I do better if I'm speaking into, a journal. But I think the practices like journaling or activities that give you some reflection carve out the space for you to be your best support.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day that collaboration with ourselves, um, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. Um, I've had to approach that type of collaboration with myself with some sense of discipline. That does not come normal. It does not
Mm.
come easy. I learned something doing some research years ago. I was working on a series of topics I was speaking on about mental health, and ran across this book, Flow. I'm sure you probably read it.
I
Mahali says
haven't.
no. Oh my
How is
gosh,
it possible?
it's a great book. One of the little nuggets that he talks about in this book is how people do what's easy, not what is empowering or what's good for us. And he gives this example that there was a study done about teenagers, and teenagers really enjoy video games. I think something like 27% of the time.
Mhm.
They enjoy um, TV and video
Mhm.
games about 27% of the time. Not much. That's not a majority. That's a fairly small minority. Um, they enjoy outdoor activities far more, like 47%. They enjoy spending time with their friends, like 53%. But these same teens that were polled watched TV or played video games like 57% of the time. And the moral of that story is we do what's easy or convenient, not what feeds us. We
Mm.
have to have a plan to do things that we enjoy. We
Mm.
have to have a plan in place that says, "Hey, I'm not just going to default to what's easiest." Great example. I think during the pandemic is really when this hit me, because we just got into this routine where when the day was over, you know, we're just going to sit down, done working, food's on the table, finish eating, sit on our ass and watch TV until it's time to go to bed. Now, that is not fulfilling at all.
Mm.
but it's really easy. And what do? We do what's really easy, not what's fulfilling. So we have to make a plan to make sure we put ourselves into that. Like yesterday, just telling you about going outside and spending a couple hours. It's embarrassing how long I had to argue with myself about whether or not I even wanted to go do that, because it wasn't easy to go to the backyard. How ridiculous is that? It wasn't easy to go to the backyard. It was easier to sit on the couch in my pajamas. But I decided to put on my shorts and my t-shirt, get out of my pajamas, go sit in the backyard, out in the sun, and it totally changed the trajectory of my day.
Yeah.
But it took a discipline, because it wasn't what I was going to say. It wasn't what I wanted, but that's the weird reality. It was what I wanted, but it wasn't what I was predisposed to. I was predisposed to just sitting and doing nothing.
Yeah. And that concept of choosing what's easy, I also think has layers of this choosing in that easiness, the things that we're told that are easy. I mean, I'm not denying that there isn't like a an awareness of actually what is easy, but what that made me think of was this tendency that I have to, oh my gosh, it's 6 o'clock. I should close down work and go relax for the evening. My evening needs to be relaxing. And then I shut down work and then make dinner and then sit, watch TV. And I'm actually within an hour or two kind of bored, but I can't bring myself to go do something else that would be considered work because that's not relaxing. Like I have these
Right.
narratives that not that I'm always able to shut down after 6 o'clock, but that evening should be relax time. And that's when I should be happy relaxing. Um,
Mhm.
and I just I want to reimagine. I want to rewrite that story and go, okay, well, maybe I find 5 times throughout the day to go and unplug and relax, the thing that I'm craving, tuning into what my body needs.
Yeah.
What does my body need right now? Is it stressed? Is it overwhelmed? Does it need to go and sit and stare at the tree outside for 30 minutes? Okay, go and do that and then go back to work. Maybe relaxing in the evening is working on the book that you've been dreaming of writing, or the scrapbook of organizing family photos, some things that
Mm.
might seem more heavier or not as relaxing, but might bring you a different type of relaxation in the joy. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Again, it's this I'm in the middle of discovering what is the pace that really serves Jill?
Mm. You know, I think for me, one of the most fundamental things I had to start doing was learning to trust myself. Um, Learning to trust that even in the midst of a frantic workday, an evening, whatever, that if I follow that sort of intuitive pull, it's going to be okay. I'm going to change the script a little bit, and that's okay. The script doesn't always have to stay the same. It's not always work until this time, unplug until that time, go to bed at that time. Routine is great, and for me, routine is part of my structure that supports all this stuff.
Mhm.
But at the same time, um, learning to trust my instinct, learning to trust that little voice that says, hey, this isn't resonating with me. I don't need to be doing this. That does resonate with me. I need to be doing that. Um,
Yeah.
and you go back to story a lot. And I think for me, learning to trust myself was learning to make sense of those stories looking back.
Mm,
and realizing that just because things don't look like someone else's things doesn't devalue it, because that's not someone else's thing. This is my thing, and
yeah.
my thing should look like me. And whether that thing is a day, a work process, a piece of music, the way I relate to an agent, or whatever it is. What was the phrase I heard the other day, and it just blew my mind? Um, Never let perfect be the enemy of good.
Mm. Oh boy, am I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Mm,
Uh, a constantly recovering perfectionist.
yeah.
Yeah. And
And
I
do you
do
find that
I
it's
do
not
use
with everybody else, but just with yourself? Like, I don't
Oh,
have that standard for anybody else, but for myself?
100%. And
Mm,
I am mindful that I use the word story a lot because I am aware that my perfectionism behavior is tethered so hard to these stories that I in the shoulds in our life. I should be doing this. This should look like this. This is how a day should be. This is how success should look. This is
mm,
how a successful leader should lead. All the shoulds. And that's where I want to start. And the reality is my body knows the truth. My body, every
mhm.
time I have a discovery of, oh, that doesn't need to be that way. I literally my body's like, "I've been here kind of telling you, back
Hello?
away, do the thing, don't stop doing that." Um, if I just tuned in and listened to my body and asked my body, "What do you need right now?" I would likely find the pace that I'm dreaming of. My body knows.
So then here's the question. What would it look like
Mm,
to build into your habits, uh, just a regular sort of routine check-in moments, to check in with yourself, check in with your body. Hey, how does Jill feel about this? Um,
yeah, I think
Everything is cyclical.
it is, and I think I am getting better at voicing, because there's this wonderful research coming out now about the power of talking to yourself, talking out loud, narrating your
Mm,
so I'm getting better. To me, if I don't say it out loud, the quiet, unspoken negative voice is going to be louder. So I say it out loud. Hey, Jill, what do I need right?
yeah.
What do you need right now? Nope, we got this. Like I am speaking the encouraging words that I need, that my body needs to hear. So, because you and I are, I'm not a musician. Well, I'm a vocalist, but I don't think of myself as a musician. But I guess I could. But we are music lovers, and so I'm trying to ensure that my body hears the resonance of my own encouragement
Mm,
and my words of affirmation about myself in the moment when I'm experiencing it.
yeah.
Um, I say this a lot. You got this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna take a breath. All right, and I tap it out and scratch. I have all these sensory tools, that help me get in touch with my body. This is a prickly thing that
Mm,
get in touch with my body. Hand lotion smells that I just scratch or tap so that I can feel and know my intention.
mm,
And then we have to know the people like you are to me, of the people that you're going to reach out to when you're really not hearing the music. Oh, okay, I just need a, 10-15 minutes with Shae,
yeah.
and I'll hear the music. I'll 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 feel the frequency.
And I think what you were just talking about with creating those own, your own stories and being that for yourself, I think that is absolutely one of the most important parts that, nobody can be the encourager for us like we can for ourselves. And ultimately, I've got to find out how to sustain myself. It
Mm.
does not mean that it doesn't take a village. It doesn't mean it doesn't devalue the importance of other people in my life. But there will be times when I can't reach out to Jill. There will be times where I can't talk to other people. There will be moments where I'm in the thick of it and I've got to figure out how to be that for myself.
Yeah, and I've been saying for years now, I am in the process of tortoising my race.
Mm,
I cannot at this point with experiences that I've had, I cannot approach life like a hare and just like charge and barrel it out. I have gotta slow it down, um, so I can sustain myself.
mm.
And, like, I had the wonderful opportunity of traveling this summer and had a chance to go to Spain and Italy.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm second generation Italian, so I love learning all things Italian. But there was, and I don't remember it, I have it saved on my phone somewhere, but there is a phrase, an Italian phrase for just the art of just being for a bit,
Hmm.
like it was like a beautiful phrase for a day of what you and I might consider doing nothing,
Yeah.
relaxing for an extended period of time without purpose or an end game.
Yesterday
Um,
afternoon in the backyard.
and there's an art to that
Yeah.
because you and I know that that's when we daydream. And we need to bring I'm trying to bring the art back to daydreaming. We've turned daydreaming into a negative thing.
Mm.
We should get ourselves into a state, a beautiful artistic state of just being so that we can unleash our creativity in however we want. Or maybe nothing comes from it, but usually something does.
Something pretty life-giving.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can be not to reduce the importance of this at all, but sometimes that can even just bring very practical solutions. Creativity doesn't have to look like writing a song or painting a picture. It can look like putting together a really great class. It can look like doing something slightly different, but in a more powerful way that can impact more people. Sometimes I always wish that we could understand more thoroughly the impact of sort of creativity on every part of life instead of just those
Oh,
creative endeavors.
100%. I say this all the time to friends who say, "I'm not creative. You're so creative, Jill." And I know I'm very expressive. I sing musical theater songs, and it's easy to put me in a cubby of creativity. But I've got friends that are really, really great at throwing dinner parties or organizing their office or, gardening. And that is creativity. That one of my dear friends, Elizabeth, she is extraordinary at supporting other agents and lifting people up and gathering people, and that is her creativity.
Mm.
And she just never thought of it that way. She's like, I just didn't think. And another friend that is really, really good at organizing spaces. And again, these stories,
Yeah.
we put things in categories and sometimes they don't need to be there.
Yeah, category
Creativity
just
is a spiritual practice, and it doesn't always look like painting or
mm,
composing.
absolutely. Although those are fun.
Totally. I mean, I always told you, like, ever since honestly, you started these Sundays with Shae during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Seeing your room behind you, your piano, and your specifically your, record player,
Mm.
like, knowing that you actually have vinyl albums that you select and choose and put, like, that is creativity, and I have been craving getting an old-timey record player. I do have tons of vinyl albums, but they have been literally sitting in boxes for decades doing nothing, and I need to get
Prime.
them out and, like, turn that into a spiritual experience, a
For me,
creative.
for me, it's a very meditative process. Um, to not only figure out and look through those albums and think, what tone am I gonna set today? What pace am I gonna set? What energy level? Um, but then also the really practical side that, I think most, or I say most, I've heard people say things like, "Oh, I don't like listening to records because you're constantly having to switch sides." I love that about it. It gives
Mm,
me sort of this meditative process of putting a side on and listening to it. And then when those two or three songs are over, going back over there, flipping it over, putting it back in. And for me, it's built in this meditative rhythm is the only way I know how to express it. That my day is not going to go overboard. My day is not going to be overwhelming. My day is going to run on a certain pace and I'm going to order it a certain way. And part of that for me is that physicality of changing those
oh,
records and keeping that pace and being very mindful that I'm
yeah,
not going to get in a hurry, that I'm not going to get overwhelmed or rushed. And it's become this. So I use the word sacrament. And the reason I use the word sacrament is I love the definition of sacrament. It's just an outward expression of an internal reality.
mm,
And for me, that routine of changing the sides of the records is like this sacramental, this is going to be how my day goes. It doesn't always work like that,
yeah,
but a lot of times it helps to refocus when things are feeling overwhelmed or out of control, or it helps to bring that lid back down, um, because those are built in.
yeah, and, just hearing you have heard you talk through this meditative practice that you do of choosing music numerous times,
Mm,
and I always love that, the dancer movement person in me feels like you are tuned into your instincts and what your body is craving in a creative spiritual practice.
mhm,
And ever since you've talked about music in this way, I've started to at least ask myself when I am carving out time for music in this intentional way, what do I want to listen to today?
mm.
And giving myself usually that's just in YouTube music, and I ask myself, well, is there a song? Is there a style? Is there a genre? Is there an album? Like, am I in the mood for an album right now? Am I in the mood for a couple of songs to bop about or to like what kind of flow am I craving? Um, and I usually explore a little bit until I hear something and my body responds to it. And
You're like, that's it.
yeah, I meditation for me is a little bit more movement oriented,
Mm.
but I may we all explore and experiment with how music can, uh, guide or settle us or carve out space for us to find a deeper awareness.
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. It's absolutely become one of the biggest support structures in my own journey of I was going to say of mental health and of leadership. Uh, but I think there's a whole overlap there. Um,
Yeah.
but well, I appreciate this conversation so much. Um, I think it was when, I mean, every time we see each other at a Texas Realtors convention or whatever, we always kind of find a time to sit and catch up and talk. And I guess it was this last one when we were at the NAR convention here in Houston back in November,
Mhm.
and we were talking about the possibility of me restarting this, and you really challenged me on that, and that meant a lot. The
Mhm.
way that you helped me kind of think through bringing this back and um, helped kind of throwing out a vision of what Find Your Frequency Sundays with Shae could be. That was really important to me, and I just want to thank you. It's just another one of those beautiful things that's part of our friendship. Um, but
And I am super grateful that we're both tuned in to the reciprocal spiritual gains from collaborating.
Absolutely, and I think who knows what's going to happen next. We'll just have to keep our eyes open, and I look forward to seeing what this year produces for you, for sure.
Oh, right back at you. We will. I feel like now I'm all zen. Like we will find our frequency, brother. We will find our frequency. Um, well, onward we go into the year of Fire Horse.
Fire Horse. I don't even know what that is, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to
To
find out.
discovering it. Heck
And
yeah.
yeah, I like horses and I like fire.
All right,
Let's see.
onward we go.
All right. Well, thank you, Jill. I appreciate you. And thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you. I'm going to finish my coffee and
All right.
step
We will see
peacefully
you
into
later.
the day.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in today. This has been so much fun. We'll see you next month. And who knows what's going to happen then. All right. Talk to you later.